brought to you by Squarespace. In the night skies flying high above the clouds, a formation of B-52 bombers is closing in on their target. But they're not alone. Major Pham Tuan in his MiG-21 is being guided by ground radar to try and get behind the American bombers, and this was not the first time that he had tried. The B-52s were now in his sight. All he had to do was to get into range. The minimum safe range to launch his K-13 missiles is 8 kilometers, but he knows he has to be a lot closer. Narrowing the distance down to 5 kilometers, 4, 3, and the missiles are away. An explosion roars throughout the skies, and he got his kill. The first ever B-52 was shot down in air-to-air combat. This was all thanks to the new fighter jet that had been delivered to the Vietnamese, the MiG-21. The MiG-21 was one of the most successful Soviet aircraft ever built, and this is the story of how it almost never got built. The 50s brought about one of the greatest evolutions in the history of aviation. The sound barrier was broken, and anti-air systems could not keep up with the new jet engines that were being put onto these aircraft at the time. The Soviets themselves were struggling to keep up against the new US spy planes, bombers and fighters, so they decided to orient their development towards interceptors. Because if the Americans kept poking into their territories, they might as well be able to catch up and take them out. So to create these new jets, it came down to the classic rivalry, MiG versus Sukhoi, something that we'll see again and again during the Cold War, and this competition was no different. The MiG-21 would go on to become one of the most prolific Russian jet aircraft used across the world. But you don't need to be a superpower to get people to buy your jet aircraft, not when you have Squarespace. That's right, sell your jet or anything else with a Squarespace website. They have plenty of great templates, or you can have a go building your own design with their powerful code-free builder. They have built-in e-commerce tech so you can start selling right away, inbuilt email campaign marketing tools that are very easy to use, and their sites are already optimized for mobile phones, so you don't have to make another one for people's devices. Plus, when you click that link down below, you're actually supporting the channel by helping fund the animations and the videos that you love so much. So it's win-win. To get this deal, simply go to www.squarespace.com/found and get 10% off your first site and domain. Become a supporter of the channel and click that link when you need a website. Back to the show. After a good performance of MiGs during the Korean War against US jets, the Bureau was set to build a new fighter, but with speed now as the priority. 2 prototypes were created called the YE-2 and the YE-4. The YE, or otherwise pronounced Yi, standing for Единица, or single unit in Russian, which was the standard designation for prototypes. Although similar in design, the Yi-2 had swept wings, well known and a studied design by that time, which was optimized for supersonic speeds, but not very good for subsonic or takeoff. However, the Yi-4 was a new design with delta wings instead. These kinds of wings would allow for better maneuverability, better lift, and more fuel capacity, keeping the optimal performance when going supersonic. This initial design was actually similar to Sukhoi's design of the swept wing Su-7 and delta wing Su-9. Even the West at the time confused them when they first appeared. After testing both prototypes in flight, it was an easy choice, and the Yi-4 became a base for what we know as the MiG-21 today. Well, kind of. You see, there was actually one little hiccup, and it was because Sukhoi actually won the contract first. The Su-9 entered service as the new Soviet interceptor, but MiG wasn't going to lose this battle and tried a new approach, changing its focus away from a fast interceptor into a dogfighter interceptor. The new Tumasky R-25 engine would give this jet enough power to go over Mach 2, and its design would allow it to be quite maneuverable in flight and go toe-to-toe with most American jets. The first variant, called the MiG-21F, entered service by 1959. It was armed only with two 30mm guns because air-to-air missiles at the time was something that the Soviets were heavily lagging behind the Americans. However, in a turn of events, it would be the Americans who would actually help the Soviets develop their first air-to-air missile and make the MiG-21 become the fighter we know it today. During the Chinese-Taiwanese War in 1958, the Taiwanese Sabres flew with the new AIM-9 Sidewinders, and in a crazy coincidence, one of the Chinese MiG-17s got shot with an AIM-9, which didn't explode. It was lodged into the fuselage and the MiG landed safely. After persuading the Chinese to give them the missile, the Soviets very quickly reverse engineered it and the K-13 missile entered service. In the words of one of the engineers, the Sidewinder missile was to us a university offering a course in missile construction technology. This would level the playing field, and the MiG-21 was soon to have its chance to prove its expectations in combat. The Vietnam War was the largest conflict after World War II, and it was used by both the US and the Soviets to test new weapons, perfect the ones that were already in service, and train personnel for the ultimate war that was brewing between the East and the West. It's here, or rather in the skies above it, that air warfare was once again revolutionized. The MiG-21 was the best the East could offer and would face up against a very formidable opponent, the F-4 Phantom. The F-4 was superior in almost every way. It was a multi-role aircraft equipped with radar, both IR and radar-guided missiles, two engines, and a higher max speed. But the MiG was a fighter made for that role only, and being very maneuverable with the right pilots and tactics, it would prove to be extremely deadly. Vietnamese pilots trained in the USSR would adopt new tactics to take on the F-4. Instead of flying directly to intercept, where they had no chance due to their radar having 2 times less the range and no medium-range radar-guided missiles like the AIM-7s, they would usually go around and try attacking enemy formations from the side or the rear. If they got close enough to enter a dogfight, then they would have the advantage. You see, the first variants of the F-4 didn't even have a cannon. It was thought that the future of air warfare was just missiles, but that wasn't correct, at least for the moment. If MiGs managed to go into a dogfight, M4s would almost be sitting ducks. After a long and unsuccessful campaign, Rolling Thunder, which saw almost 1,000 US aircraft being lost, Americans were forced to completely redesign their air warfare and strategy, leading to the NSAWC, or the Top Gun School, being created in the Navy and Air Force to start their own fighter school, focusing on dogfighting to take on the MiG-21. Most of the Vietnamese aces from the war flew on the MiG-21, including the top ace, Nguyen Van Cok, with 9 victories, and even today, they fondly remember their time with this aircraft. The MiG-21 proved to be everything it was expected to be, and its career was just getting started. The Fishbed saw a lot more combat during its career, but its title as one of the best fighters in the sky started to slip around the Israel-Arab wars because it was quickly outclassed by the new F-16s and F-15s. Although some flown by top Soviet pilots were still able to go toe-to-toe with the best of the Israelis. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iraqi MiG-21s were credited with almost 40 kills with similar losses. The MiG-21 BIs were probably the ultimate modernization of this aircraft, which was widely spread, with many countries adopting this aircraft as their jet fighter of choice. Overall, more than 11,000 MiG-21s were built, either by the Soviets or by other Eastern Bloc countries, making it the most produced supersonic aircraft in history, and some 60 countries have used them at some point. The story of the MiG-21 lives up to this day, and it's still in service. Over 60 years after its first flight in numerous countries, and just like its nemesis, the F-4, it is one of the most legendary aircraft ever built. Nowadays, even two NATO countries still use the MiG-21, namely Croatia and Romania, but that is soon to change with them acquiring new and modern aircraft. Do let me know if you'd like to see more videos on jets that didn't just stay as paper projects or ended their career in a prototype phase, or more videos focused on stories from certain conflicts and perspectives. It's a new year here at Found and Explained, and I'm very excited to see what other type of content that we can put together. So thank you so much again for watching, and do svidaniya.